Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. The Government of Canada has formally apologized to 9 Dakota and Lakota bands. Most of them came to Canada in 1876 after defeating U.S. forces at the Battle of Little Bighorn in Montana. Some returned to the U.S., others remained in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, where they were called refugees. Video journalist Rachel May has more on the apology.
I'm here today to deliver this honest and genuine apology on behalf of the Government of Canada to the 9 Dakota Lakota First Nations in Canada and their citizens.
Today, Canada's Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations was at the Whitecap Dakota Nation, south of Saskatoon, to deliver a long-awaited apology. 9 Dakota and Lakota First Nations, now in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, heard Gary Anandasangari say that Canada had denied them their rights. He apologized and committed to working with them to ensure something like this never happens again.
You know, the best time to this type of work was yesterday or the day before, but the second best time is today.
These Dakota and Lakota bands came to Canada after wars against the U.S. They didn't sign treaties with Canada and were denied rights and benefits, even though they were on the edges of their pre-contact territories.
The 9 communities that are involved today in the apology have been waiting for over 260 years for Canada's failure to be corrected. Nothing's going to bring back the past. Nothing's going to bring back the indignity faced by many.
While today marked a historic first step, the 9 First Nations emphasized that there was a lot of work to be done. FSIN Vice Chief Ali Bear expressed that this apology marks a critical step towards reclaiming everything her people have lost.
I can't speak my language. One day I will. And I will say that one day I will speak my language. And I give thanks to all of those that are language keepers in this room who continue to keep our language alive.
Chief Don Smoke of Dakota Plains First Nation in Manitoba invited his daughter Sophia to speak. She emphasized that it is time for youth to step up and ensure a better future.
While my grandfather died waiting for this simple apology, his roof will be our floor. We will ask for more and we will never stop.
More meetings with Anandasangari are planned. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The company behind a cyanide spill at a Yukon mine last month says they can't promise they'll be able to clean it up. Now, Sarah Connors reports that has First Nation and environmental groups wondering if the company is facing bankruptcy.
On June 24th, there was a major equipment failure at Victoria Gold's Eagle mine site in north-central Yukon. The failure damaged the mine's heap leach pad, a process used to extract ore and gold, causing cyanide to spill into the environment. On Friday, the company said in a public statement it didn't know if it would be able to restart production or if it could provide the cash needed to fix the site.
The more we learn about this, the sketchier it gets.
The statement has raised eyebrows at Mining Watch Canada, which advocates for responsible mining. The organization says most of the company's money was tied up in the heap leach pile.
They don't have the cash flow, they don't have any other operations, they don't have a lot of reserves, so it wouldn't be at all surprising if they go belly up as a result of this.
The Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society's Yukon branch says it's not a matter of if the mine goes bankrupt, but when. That's because its $104 million security is based on a closure plan, one that doesn't account for a heap leach failure and environmental contamination.
It assumes that the heap leach is going to be there so that they can detoxify the cyanide. The heap leach is destroyed, the pumping system is destroyed. It makes cleanup a lot more complex and a lot more expensive.
We're very disappointed to hear that announcement by Vic Gold.
Chief Donna Hope of the First Nation of Nachonayakdun says she was surprised by the announcement. The mine is located on their traditional territory. But Hope says her First Nation has bigger concerns than Victoria Gold's financial situation. It recently received information that the mine's events ponds are close to being full.
Once they are full, they're going to start overflowing. That is of biggest concern to us. There's impending disasters beyond the disaster that occurred June 24th.
APTN reached out to Victoria Gold for comment. They have yet to respond. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Chiefs across the country supported a challenge by First Nations in Ontario over carbon pricing. It happened in a resolution passed at the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Montreal last week. It appears to fit neatly into Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's playbook, but as Annette Francis reports, it's not that simple.
Last week, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre addressed chiefs from across the country at the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Montreal. A big part of his message is that he will axe the carbon tax if elected Prime Minister.
Axe the tax means cancelling a carbon tax that is making food and groceries more unaffordable for everyone, but especially for First Nations people. Because of the remote and colder weathers that you must confront, this tax is particularly cruel and unjust, and that is why I support the Chiefs of Ontario and their judicial review to counter this unjust tax burden.
The Chiefs of Ontario filed a court challenge last year against the federal government that the carbon tax isn't fairly applied on First Nations. For example, First Nations people often don't file tax returns, so they're not benefiting from the carbon tax rebate. The chiefs in Assembly voted to support a resolution calling on the federal government to stop this kind of discriminatory treatment. According to Regional Chief Abram Benedict, that means cross-country support in their legal battle.
And so we know that a number of our communities, predominantly the ones northern and remote communities, don't file income taxes. And so, and these communities are the ones that are directly impacted the most by having the carbon charge on the fuel that's delivered into their communities. And so, the disadvantage to our members is a huge part of our action against Canada, and they haven't given any consideration to our communities.
But Grand Chief Benedict said it's not just about axing the tax. Ontario First Nations support a way to address climate change as well.
A number of our remote and northern communities are directly affected by climate change, and so winter roads are not the same. The water is either causing a lot of problem, or there is none. The migration of moose and caribou and of the like has changed because of climate change. So we're definitely supportive of actions that help combat climate change. Now, we're not supportive of a regime that financially disadvantages our communities. So I want to be clear that we need to address climate change across this country, but it can't be at the expense of First Nations. So the axe the tax, right, is fine, but it doesn't mean that we don't need strategies to address climate change.
Benedict says he remains optimistic that the federal government will reverse the tax for First Nations before it goes to court. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The representative for youth and children in British Columbia just released their latest report, which details the tragic story of a young boy that was failed by the system. APTN's Tina House has this report and a warning to some viewers. Details in this story may be disturbing.
The stories of the children in this report call us to take action and to take action now.
At this press conference, Grace Lohr, who is the Minister of Children and Families, addressed the media. They are here to discuss this report called Don't Look Away, that shines a spotlight on the cracks in the system that failed an 11-year-old boy named Colby, a First Nations boy who died after enduring months of torture, neglect, and severe abuse at the hands of extended family caregivers. In the report, the representative says intergenerational trauma is one of the factors in the death of Colby and many other kids in care.
How do you make sure that some of the intergenerational violence that is caused by historical and ongoing colonization and colonialism, how does that get addressed so that there can be really strong and loving relationships and nurturing and back to breathing life into the ways of being from time immemorial?
Cheryl Casimir of the First Nations Leadership Council says enough is enough and more needs to be done to ever prevent this from happening ever again.
I can guarantee you that there is a child somewhere, whether he's Indigenous or non-Indigenous, who is waiting for somebody to step up for them right now. There is a child somewhere today who is hungry, who is being hurt, who is suffering from mental health issues, who is hoping an adult or someone is going to come along and help them.
The report highlights the confusion over roles and responsibilities, not enough support for struggling parents and caregivers, essentially setting them up to fail, requires an entire system review.
We are going to look at whether we need to pull apart, think differently about prevention and protection. And as the representative has said, we also need to take the steps now that support children's safety.
Mary Teegee from Carrier-Sir County Family Services read a powerful quote from a young boy in care to the audience.
I would like to leave you with the words of a young boy, a child in care, and I say this often, but it bears repeating, who said he dreamt of a day when he only had to read about the impacts of colonization in residential school, not have to live it. In this case, Colby unfortunately had to die from those impacts.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A healing lodge has been placed near a Manitoba landfill ahead of the start of the search for at least 2 First Nations women. Details on that and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. Cindy Blackstock has been a tireless advocate for First Nations children in care for many years, but she was not part of a major announcement of First Nations child welfare reform last week. At the AFN Assembly in Montreal, National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak announced the organization had reached an agreement with the federal government, a deal to provide $47.8 billion over 10 years to reform the First Nations child welfare system. But some have questioned why Blackstock was absent when the announcement happened. Woodhouse-Nepenak told APTN News Blackstock was not a part of it because she was not involved in the negotiations.
She had left the table. I guess she had some, I talked to her about it last week, and she said that she had some, I guess, things that she had wanted changed at the negotiation table or something, and that, you know, we told her that we wanted her to come back to the negotiating table because there's lots of work to do, and I hope that she comes back. The AFN, you know, always wants to welcome everybody at the table, and we can't force people, though, to be at the table.
Meanwhile, AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak met with Manitoba Lieutenant Governor Anita Neville on Wednesday. The two discussed a number of issues, including the AFN's call for a First Nations-led public inquiry into the deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and a woman known as Buffalo Woman. APTN News asked Woodhouse-Nepenak what role the Lieutenant Governor could play in influencing the government to call an inquiry.
We're hoping that we can find a common path forward. Like she told me that this issue has been dear to her heart for long before it was an issue, and we had a long conversation about that. Our meeting went way over. Of course, we talked about child welfare and housing and education, and we talked about many issues that affect First Nations, and we talked about unfortunately how the high numbers of kids in care in Manitoba, it's probably the highest around the world.
The family of Morgan Harris were the ones pushing for the call for the independent inquiry into the 4 Indigenous women's deaths. They are also preparing for the upcoming search of the Prairie Green landfill. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
because they have to pour a concrete foundation.
Some family members of Morgan Harris have come to the Prairie Green landfill to see this, the family healing lodge, fresh on site, still on a trailer.
Yes, so it's going to be a space for our family to come together and, you know, watch the work happening.
She's talking about the politically charged initiative to search the landfill. Admitted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky told the cops he disposed of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron in a garbage bin behind a business near his apartment back in early May 2022. 2 weeks later, it is believed the two First Nations women's remains ended up here in the Prairie Green landfill. This healing lodge will become a safe space for the Harris and Myron families to gather once the search begins in the fall.
Do ceremony with our elder, Grandma Shingu, smudge, be fanned down, whatever it is that we're needing to get through that day, because each day we know is going to be different. You know, one day it could be really good, the next day, you know, we could be hit with a lot of sadness.
After a heart-wrenching 2 years, this is the third bit of good news that Morgan's relatives have heard in a row. Just last week, Skibitsky was found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder for Morgan, Mercedes, Rebecca Contois, and yet-to-be-identified Buffalo woman. At the same time, an annual event for the Assembly of First Nations was happening in Montreal, where Robinson and Morgan's children were seeking support for an inquiry into the 4 women's deaths. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, or AMC, put a resolution on the floor that was unanimously supported by all leadership in attendance. Here on site at the Healing Lodge, Robinson also shares her reaction to the midweek announcement about National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak meeting with Manitoba's Lieutenant Governor.
I was a little taken back that we weren't informed that it was happening.
After calming herself down, Robinson said she reached out to the AMC, who then explained this brief meeting was to hand the resolution over.
Everything that we've done has always been family-led, family first. Assembly Manitoba Chiefs has always ensured that, you know, everything is run through us before it goes back out. So it was a bit of a shocker as I was sitting there this morning drinking my coffee. So I immediately messaged and said, "What's the scoop on this?" And so no, it'll be a quick exchange today. I understand. I'll take it as that. And when it's time for us to sit down, we will.
Right now, though, Robinson says the real work of searching the landfill is what's important, so they can bring Morgan and Mercedes home to their communities for a proper burial. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew was asked this week about his thoughts on a public inquiry into the deaths of the women. Kinew was in Halifax as the summer meeting of Canada's premiers wrapped up. The 13 premiers spoke with media after 3 days of meetings. They focused on healthcare, relationships with the federal government, and other issues. APTN News asked Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew if he would support an independent First Nations-led commission of inquiry into the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Buffalo woman. The inquiry would be the result of a resolution passed last week at the Assembly of First Nations AGM in Montreal.
When it comes to searching the Prairie Green landfill, I always start with a note of compassion for the families. These are family members who've lost loved ones to one of the worst crimes that's ever been committed in our province. And they've been put through so much, having to sit through the courtroom and having the issue politicized, that I just want us to be there for them and to have their backs. So we will listen to the issues that they're bringing forward and the requests that they have here. And I think, importantly, we're taking action.
The Louis Bull Tribe have opened their latest project. Details on that after the break. Welcome back. The Louis Bull Tribe, about an hour south of Edmonton, recently celebrated the opening of their newest project, the Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort. APTN's Chris Stewart visited the new location and tells us how it's helping the community.
It's 10 in the morning and the casino is quiet. No sounds from electronic games, from dealers, or from roulette wheels. Not yet. The Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort doesn't open for another hour. A perfect opportunity to talk to some of the people who work here. The casino opened on June 19th. It still has that new casino smell. Featuring 200 slot machines, 10 table games with poker, blackjack, and roulette, a restaurant and lounge, and a smoking section with state-of-the-art air filters. It's been in the making for years, according to Erica Beaugeroux, the executive director of the Bear Hills Casino Society.
When the idea started, like when there was pen to the paper, it was to help our future generations in everything, like, and not depend on the government, so we can be self-sufficient and have a thriving Cree Nation.
The 2,400-member First Nation also owns a golf course, an RV park, and a Petro-Canada station is being built beside the casino on Highway 2 between Calgary and Edmonton. Erica Beaugeroux says it was important to hire from the community.
We are proud to have 51% of our employees Indigenous and from our nation and from the surrounding nations. And that's one of the goals that we shot for.
Employees like Virgil Bull, who works in maintenance. He's from the Louisville tribe.
It's so awesome to see something like this from my reserve. The things that are finally happening here. Like, this building has been, 30 years in the making? And the fact that I get to work here and it's so new, it's amazing. Like, the building is great. The location is awesome. Our gas bar will be opening soon, so that'll generate for the community as well.
Bull has been here for only 3 weeks since the opening, but he is loving the experience.
Working here is probably one of the better jobs that I've had. Like, I love it here. I get to work with a lot of my family members, which is amazing. I met a lot of new people already. I'm very outgoing, so I know probably almost everybody in the building already by first name basis, which is nice because, like I said, I love it here. I won't quit until they tell me to leave.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, at the Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort on the Louisville Tribe, Alberta.
I wonder if Chris hit the jackpot. He went on holidays right after filing that story. Well, that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and kick off your week on Monday with Creason at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the day's news. This past week, Creason had Cree singer-songwriter Adrian Sutherland on the show. We're going to leave you tonight with part of Adrian's performance. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Side